Hey, what's up? It's Fuel Your Life Friday. Let's go. Happy Friday, friends. Learning my family's history has been something I've been more inquisitive about over the past 5 years. When I first moved to Florida, I took a role as a social media specialist on behalf of Ford Motor Company, and when I walked into my first day on the job, my colleagues asked me my ethnicity and my heritage. Most of them were Puerto Rican, 2 men were Italian, another lady knew of her deep European roots, and I didn't know. I knew my mom's side was of Scottish descent in one way or another, and I had heard tales of my dad's side, but no real fact. A few years ago, I received an Ancestry DNA kit, which led me to learn that I'm basically full-blown European, mostly from Great Britain with some Germanic, Scottish, and Irish roots. I then began to learn about the people within my family tree. I learned of how my dad's side of the family was one of the first 20 families to live in my hometown of Boonesboro, Maryland, and that a grandfather on that side was Richard the Bull Smith, the man who founded Smithtown, New York, and was awarded that land after he saved the Indian chief's daughter from being kidnapped. I also learned that I'm the 17th great-granddaughter of King Henry I, who was the son of William the Conqueror, and I learned that there was a Sarah Smith long before my sister. I learned so much that these people began feeling very much alive, except they aren't. I'm unsure where I had this thought, but at some point in time, I began to wonder about the untold stories from my living family. I am fortunate enough to have my maternal grandfather and my paternal grandmother still alive. My grandfather, who you may have heard on the first episode of Awaken Your Soul Sunday, is always sharing stories. I can't get enough of them. But my grandmother, she's just a little bit more reserved and quiet. She was the youngest of 17 siblings. Her home of over 50 years stands in front of the farm that she was born and raised on. One of her sisters lived 2 doors down and another one down the street. I remember going to one of the many family reunions as a child and being overwhelmed by the sheer amount of people. 17 siblings in one family. Can you imagine the reunions? The other week, my dad shared an article with me that highlighted the oldest of the 5 sisters, my great-aunt Mary, who just turned 103. 103. Can you imagine? My dad says Aunt Mary is sharp as a tack, and you wouldn't think she's a day over 80. What shocked me the most about the article he shared was the headline that read, "Local Rosie the Riveter celebrates 103rd birthday at Aviation Museum." Rosie the Riveter? Aunt Mary? Say what? How did I not know this? Now, if you're a young buck and have no clue who or what Rosie the Riveter was, Rosie the Riveter was a fictional, cultural icon of World War II. She represented the women who worked in the factories and shipyards during World War II, many of whom produced ammunition and other war supplies. Mary Bartow Clever was one of the first 6 Rosies to be employed as a riveter at Fairchild Aviation Factory in September of 1941 at the height of World War II, 3 months before Pearl Harbor. She worked on the production line for 17 years, and within the article she shared that 4 brothers worked there as welders, and a few of her sisters later worked on the production line as well. The Hagerstown Aviation Museum, located in Hagerstown, Maryland, resides in the building where the Fairchild Aviation Factory once stood, and during my Aunt Mary's birthday celebration, she was able to walk through one of the flying boxcars that she once made parts for. Aunt Mary even built parts for the PT-19, which were used by the United States Air Forces, the Royal Air Force, and the Royal Canadian Air Force. The basis of today's episode is, of course, to celebrate the beautiful life of Mary Clever, but it's also to encourage you to ask more questions and to listen to the stories of your living elders. Our ancestors paved the way, oftentimes in ways that we're not even conscious to. But for me, when I'm able to tie a piece of history to my family and understand what role my ancestors had, I feel more of a connection to both the event and the person. Don't wait to learn the stories of your relatives from their obituary. Ask now. Listen now. And then continue to share those stories. If you enjoyed today's episode, give it a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever it is that you tune in and turn it up. I'll see you back here on Sunday for another episode of Awaken Your Soul Sunday. But until then, remember, every level of life is an opportunity to grow. Be well, my friend.